Hi, hey, hello, and what the hell just happened? This is a Colts podcast brought to you by Sports Illustrated and the Horseshoe Huddle. My name's Brandon. I'm joined here by your very unhappy, very negative attitude co-host, my best friend, Andrew Moore. I'm feeling just as negative as him today. How are you, buddy? Are you hanging in there? Be glad you're not the one that had to pretend to be having fun to start the show.
I mean, I've definitely been better. Just what a collapse. I think there's no way to sugarcoat this. This is one of the worst losses in Indianapolis Colts franchise history. To the meltdown that we've just seen over the past 2 weeks is unacceptable. It really is. To go from a 95% chance of making the playoffs to out of it. It's I mean, I've seen Twitter go up in flames. I've seen Facebook already go up in flames. The fan base isn't happy, and they shouldn't be. This was an absolute total collapse, complete meltdown by the Indianapolis Colts, and it's really unacceptable at this point. In today's game, once again, they go down to Jacksonville and can't get the job done against a team that's going to be picking with the number 1 pick in the draft. Totally unacceptable, and Colts should. I was embarrassed to be watching that game.
That was tough. That's the best way to put it. It was probably one of the worst losses in the history of this franchise, I would say. And I agree with Matt. Usually mock Colts Twitter for the meltdowns, but today we'll let him be. We'll let him go. Yeah, man. I don't know what happened. It felt very, very similar the start of the game to the Rams game last week. The team
Raiders.
itself, what did I say?
Rams.
I'm cheering for the Rams now. That for the rest of the year. That's where that came from, I guess. It just felt a lot like that Raiders game. They marched down, scored a touchdown. We end up punting the ball really quickly, not quite a 3 and out. Just giving up points right away to it. And I mean, Trevor Lawrence, good for him, by the way. Game of his season. But I mean, the defense looked flat. I mean, the announcers, by the way, that color commentator, rough today.
That's good old Adam Archuleta for you.
I mean, they really threw out the B team here for the last week. They really just did not give a shit what they were doing today. But I mean, just totally flat performance. You didn't hear anything about Buckner. You didn't hear Leonard's name. The defense, for the first time in weeks and weeks, hasn't created a turnover. It was rough all around. And there's a couple of guys that are going to get talked about, and we're going to be some of the people talking about them. So we'll get started. Carson Wentz, just an absolutely abysmal, terrible performance. 17 for 29, 58.6 percentage, 185 yards, a touchdown, an interception, should have been 2 or more, and a 74.6 rating. Andrew, let's talk about it.
Do we have to? Of course we do. Yeah, not good from Carson Wentz. And this is kind of what I was fearing. I was fearing that the Jaguars were going to be able to stifle Jonathan Taylor and this running game, and all the pressure was going to be put on Carson Wentz to perform, and he just didn't. And I'm not going to put this all on Carson Wentz, because I think at the end of the day, this was an entire team loss. There was no real point on the team, or no real position on the team where I thought, okay, they had a good day. Maybe Michael Badgley for his field goal attempt. I mean, maybe you could say that, but other than that, this entire Colts team was pathetic, in my opinion. Carson Wentz goes out there and, again, making bad throws all over the field. His accuracy was very poor today. He had some nice throws. I mean, the throw to T.Y. Hilton was certainly good, but I mean, and of course, I'm going to have to watch the film, which it's not going to be a fun Wednesday this week, last one of the year. But when you're talking about the Colts being in this kind of situation where the running game isn't going, Carson Wentz is going to need to be able to put the team on his back and consistently win games, not just against the Arizona Cardinals that one week. He should be able to do it against a 2-14 Jacksonville Jaguars team. I mean, like stats Matt said, he held the ball too long, missed open wide receivers, refused to check down. He did all of those things, and he was inaccurate down the field. The pressure was getting to him, which we'll talk about the offensive line here in a bit. But when the chips are all pushed into the table, we can't get that out of Carson Wentz. And I know me and you have been big proponents of Carson Wentz this year. We've actually said, hey, we think we can win with Carson Wentz. But the thing is, this is when Carson Wentz needed to go out there and put on a hell of a performance, put the team on his back, and will this Colts team to the playoffs if he wants to be the long-term solution at the quarterback position for the Indianapolis Colts. And he didn't today. He looked like the Carson Wentz of last week, where he was skittish in the pocket, held on to the ball too long, didn't process things quick enough. He tried to, again, instead of just wrapping up and taking a sack, he tried to flip the damn ball again, and it ended up being a fumble and a turnover. Enough is enough with that. And look what happened. The Colts are now going to be sitting, like me and you, sitting on their couches and watching January football. And like I said, I don't want to act like this is all on Carson Wentz, but Carson Wentz holds a big part of the blame for the performance today.
Yeah, he sucked. And one season, this is all. I mean, I feel like I've said this 100 times. Why are we putting this offense into long third downs? And it probably is partially because of the predictability, but it's a lack of performance by, and we'll get into the offensive line. But I mean, did I put that? I did put that in here twice. Carson's got to, like you said, he's got to step up. And if you want to be a playoff quarterback, a Super Bowl quarterback, you have to be able to make up some of the gap. You just have to be able to do it. That's what Patrick Mahomes does, Aaron Rodgers does, Tom Brady does. And I know last year's Super Bowl, Tom Brady had every weapon in the arsenal a guy could wish for, but he won Super Bowls without it. Without superstar names. Heck, the best receiver he ever had, Randy Moss, they lost the Super Bowl with him. So you just have to find a way to win football games and to play well when your team needs you to, because that team sold out on the run. Jonathan Taylor wasn't going anywhere. And today he wasn't even pushing the piles like he normally does. The offensive line was flat, didn't help him. And Carson Wentz, I don't know. I know where the Colts are gonna go from here. They're not gonna ditch Wentz. No. It's not really a feasible option right now, anyhow. Is that something that you would like to see?
I don't think so. And not just because of Wentz's play, because one I don't want to. Well, this is so fresh in our minds, and this is normally
get
why
the contract stuff out of your mind. Would you want to dump Wentz if we could?
Well, I mean, if we could, but you have to add that contract stuff in it. And there's the thing. There's multiple reasons why you probably shouldn't move off of Carson Wentz. Number one is the contract, because if the Colts would cut him, it'd be a $15 million difference, or $15 million dead cap that the Colts would take next year. Well, the Colts have $57 million in cap. You take 15 away. I mean, the Colts still have a lot of free agents, a lot of holes they still need to fill. It's not like this team is just a quarterback away. Right. They still need receiving help. They need a left tackle. They need some edge help. They need some help in the secondary. There's a lot of holes on this team still. So when you're thinking about that contract is the first thing. Second thing, what other better options are out there? And I mean, you could make your case for
Russell Wilson,
people, but the thing is too, you can't cut Carson Wentz just because Aaron Rodgers might be available or Russell Wilson might be available. And honestly, like you said about Russell Wilson, if I'm the Seahawks and I have a IQ of above 4, I would keep Russell Wilson and move off of Pete Carroll. That's what I would do. So that you can't just give Carson Wentz a cut him and say, those guys might be available. You have to have a plan in place. And another thing, and the third reason, when you look at this draft, number one, the Colts don't have a first-round draft pick, so it would take an absurd amount of draft capital to even get into a position to take one of those quarterbacks. And when you look at these quarterbacks, none of them really jump off the page as a bona fide star, like a Joe Burrow or a Trevor Lawrence or even like a Mac Jones. Now people say, oh well, the Colts should have traded up for Justin Fields last year. The Colts
Yeah.
didn't know number one, look what Justin Fields is doing, but number two, the Colts didn't know that Justin Fields was even going to drop outside the top 10. They made the trade for Carson Wentz back in February. So that's going back to the thing. Like, I mean, hindsight's 2020. You see that now and you think, oh, well, maybe. But at the same time, he was projected to be a top 5 pick. There's no guarantee. So as of right now, you can't move off of Carson Wentz, and nor should I. I do still want to see what he can do in a second year in Frank Reich's offense. I want to see what this Colts team can do to build around him. Get him a solid left tackle. Get Eric Fisher out of the damn building. Get us another wide receiver that takes pressure off of Michael Pittman Jr. so he doesn't have to be the only wide receiver that moves the ball down the field. Get some weapons in place and make sure that you've done all you can to help Carson Wentz in this 2-year experiment when you have him under contract. And then if he still can't perform, you can cut him after the 2022 season. You don't have any guarantees left on his contract, and then you can move forward.
Yeah, and I agree. I'm just obviously doing my job and provoking some thought. I don't think we should, and we definitely won't move on from Wentz yet, or Frank Reich. That's not happening anytime soon. I think by the time Frank Reich's out the building, it's because he retired or him and Chris are both gone. I feel like Chris is just going to go down with the ship. If Frank ever, if Irsay was ever like, sorry, it's time for Frank to go. But
right. And I think too, I mean, we're talking all about Wentz, and we're believe us, guys, there's going to be an episode in this offseason where we go deep and only talk about Carson Wentz and what the Colts should do moving forward with him. But since it's all fresh on our mind, this is what we're kind of talking about. But yes, again, I do want to see, especially that's the big thing. What can he do in a second year in Frank Reich's offense? And again, this is, I think from the very beginning, this has always been a 2-year experiment because the Colts, when they made the trade, they knew they were going to be on the hook for Carson Wentz's cap for those 2 years at least. And if it doesn't work out, again, you cut him, you move on, you see what your options are after that.
Before we move on to the offensive line, Andrew, I have a question. Would you like to discuss what we should do with coordinators and coaches and certain players, next episode after we hear Ballard talk? Should we just save that for another episode? We got time. We'll save that.
We could save that. I think I'll kind of give my opinion on where I think it's heading at the end of our Colts talk.
Okay. Here. Oh yeah, okay. Offensive line. They were bad. They were real
Not
bad
good.
in the run game, in the pass game. Jonathan Taylor's only had 15 carries for 77 yards, total of 94 rushing yards, 6 sacks given up. Carson Wentz, although, he had opportunities to do better. I think Wentz season said something about not setting up with the quick passes. We ran a couple of quick passes in a row that worked. So, yeah, we could have seen more of that throughout the game, that's for sure. But, he had no time. He had no time for another week in a row. Eric Fisher stinks. Quentin Nelson wasn't good today. Ryan Kelly wasn't good today. Smith, Glow, none of them. Everybody played bad. Somebody in the comments again said we're paying this offensive line too much for a performance like that. That's supposed to be the rock of this football team. Them and Jonathan Taylor, and the defense, who again, abysmal today as well. But what in the hell?
Whoever did comment that is exactly right. This Colts team puts way too many resources into their offensive line for them to get absolutely dominated up front like they did today against what is supposed to be one of the worst teams in the league. And I did want to make one point. All the people that were talking on social media that people are crazy for thinking that the Jaguars even have a chance against the Colts. Well, any team can win on any given weekend. So I think I'll just leave it at that. Anyways, this offensive line, Eric Fisher got pulled midway through the second half for Matt Pryor. I don't expect Eric Fisher to be back. He got benched today, and for good reason, because Josh Allen threw him around like a rag doll. Quentin Nelson, your all-pro guard, was getting beat. Ryan Kelly getting beat and called for holding. Braden Smith just completely whiffing on that sack of Carson Wentz, where Carson tries to flip the ball and ends up as a fumble. This offensive line, you're absolutely right. It is the backbone of this team and of this offense. This is what drives this thing. Chris Ballard has put so many resources into this offensive line, and for them to just
Yep.
completely just eviscerate and evaporate, have a terrible performance like that on your most important game of the year, absolutely unacceptable. And I don't, again, you can't really even put it on one guy because all five guys on the unit played so bad. And it's just hard to see that happen, especially when this offensive line has dominated and you've got guys that you consider tops of their position in the league at these offensive line positions. It was terrible to see, and it was a big reason why this Colts offense could not do anything until garbage time, when they just quick passed it down the field to Michael Pittman and finally got a touchdown that really didn't even matter in the first place. So yeah, offensive line, terrible performance, and they need to do a lot of soul searching after that one.
Moved. I agree with this too, Tim. The in-game adjustments, the line's not blocking well. Let's get some of those quicker passes that we just talked about too. That's something that we struggled with this year too. I think was adjusting in game, which I know that's not as easy as it sounds. We did the defense, a lot of halftime adjustments. We've credited Flus with some good halftime adjustments throughout the year, but for the most part, just not adjusting the situations like we had today when we don't have time to, there's next week 1-0. This week goes 0-1 and we're done. So the lack of ability to make those adjustments mid-game, I agree. That was disappointing.
As far as the offensive line is concerned too, and the protection packages, that goes directly on Ryan Kelly and Carson Wentz. No, Ryan Kelly is the one that's usually handling all the protections at the line of scrimmage, but Carson Wentz needs to do a hell of a lot better job as well of identifying where those blitzes are coming from. There's been multiple times, especially the last few weeks, where Carson Wentz has really missed on those, and he needs to do a better job of being better pre-snap and identifying those, so the adjustments can be made, whether it's adjusting the protection, killing and checking out of the play, getting into something else. That just wasn't happening and hasn't been happening for the last couple weeks, and so that's definitely something that both of them, I think, need to really focus on and work on in the offseason.
Like I said, Trevor Lawrence, best game of his rookie year. You just know it's going to come against the Colts. Of course it was. Of course, he was going to have his best game of the season against us. 23 for 32, 71.9% completion percentage, 223 yards, 2 touchdowns, 111.8 rating. And he was just picking on Kenny Moore at one point. It felt like, holy shit.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't help that Rocky Sin goes out of the game on the very first drive. Rocky Sin goes out. Kenny Moore continues a 2-week span of things where he just has looked like a pedestrian corner, and this is supposed to be and Kenny Moore's a Pro Bowler, and then
that's what's so funny about it, is because we lost. X was out, Rock's out, and we'll still throw Kenny Moore. Why not? What is going on?
And even Isaiah Rodgers had his struggles today. You didn't see this Colts defense put up a fight. And I don't even want to start with the secondary. I want to start with that defensive line. Once again, there was no pressure on Trevor Lawrence. He sat back there and just picked apart this defense because nobody got pressure. And that kind of
all day back there.
DeForest Buckner, you noticed it from the very beginning. I really wasn't paying too much attention to it until you had mentioned it. But DeForest Buckner, I mean, he missed practice all week and he was able to play, but it was very sparingly. But DeForest Buckner was not near 100%. He could not play the normal snaps that he normally does. Instead, Taylor Stallworth was in there. And you could tell just how big of a difference it is when DeForest Buckner isn't in there. I mean, Kwity Paye hardly was able to get pressure on Trevor Lawrence. Al-Qadim Muhammad, he was the one that had the lone sack today, and it might have been when Trevor Lawrence was just trying to step up in the pocket. I don't even remember when Al-Qadim Muhammad had that sack. And this is becoming a theme, and it's not a good theme, where we're not getting consistent pass rush from this Colts defensive line. And if you're going to play this style of defense where it's predicated on more zone than man, keeping everything in front of you, being not as aggressive with their blitz packages, you got to get pressure with those front four guys. And it just simply hasn't been good enough. And I understand that you have a rookies in there and Kwity Paye and Dio Adangbo, but you put in a second round pick on Kamoko Toure, who, while he had 6 sacks this year, there's just not enough consistency. Ben Banogu, constantly a healthy scratch. Al-Qadim Muhammad, who is a guy that you signed off the street pretty much and has been one of your best pass rushers. It just needs to be better. That's on Chris Ballard. That's on the players. That's on Brian Baker, the defensive line coach. There's no excuse at this point why the Colts do not have a better pass rush. It needs to be up there. Otherwise, this Colts defense, we're going to consistently see this happen where quarterbacks just stand back there, have all day to throw, and pick the Colts defense apart like we've seen the past 2 weeks with Derek Carr and Trevor Lawrence.
Do you think that is solely a personnel issue or a scheme issue? Or, I mean, you know what I mean? Just in regards to the pass rush, is it just the players that we have, or do you think that the way they're being utilized is not great?
I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, I think the players definitely need to step up because you don't see there's too many times where the Colts defensive linemen that are pass rushing just get hung up on single blocks and they can't get off the blocks. That's something that should be taught. I mean, Robert Mathis was very good at being able to get off blocks. And Robert Mathis is a potential Hall of Fame player, so not everyone is Robert Mathis. But at the same time, I think you get what I'm saying. You can't just be stuck on the block for so long.
Yeah.
Especially against offensive linemen that have no business being able to block you. And the Colts have put so much high draft capital into their defensive line that this shouldn't be a problem. And I mean, well, let's just go down the line. Kwity Paye, first round pick. Dio Dangbo, Kamoko Toure, Tyquan Lewis, who was injured, all second round picks. Ben Banogu, second round pick. He doesn't even touch the field. DeForest Buckner, you give up a first round pick for him. Grover Stewart, while he's a fourth round pick, you still paid him a lot of money to be one of your top defensive linemen. When you have those guys, it just needs to step up. And again, I'd understand why the Colts went young on the defensive line this year with Kwity Paye and Dio Dangbo and not bringing back Danico Autry and Justin Houston. Thing about it is Danico Autry, I think, has about 10 sacks this year in Tennessee. Justin Houston isn't there either. So it's pretty ridiculous. And Stats Matt coming in with an absolute heater. Jags had 3 starting linemen out today. No,
that hurt me. I really wish you hadn't told me that. I really wish you hadn't told me that.
Makes it even worse.
I am infuriated by that. Oh,
no excuse. Just no excuse.
That's pathetic. I can't keep talking about this. Can we move on? That just made me so mad.
And the thing is, too, I mean,
defense stinks. What do you want to do? I know we're going to talk about where the Colts go from here. What do you think about Eberflus right now? 2 weeks ago, we're talking about how he's gonna end up getting interviews again. So I saw a joke on Twitter. The Jaguars have officially rescinded their request to interview Matt Eberflus for the head coaching position.
I think if Matt Eberflus got a head coaching position somewhere else, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world for the Indianapolis Colts. And the Colts didn't have a turnover today either. Something that this defense is so predicated on and it's so important. Colts didn't have a turnover at all today. No, you didn't hear Darius Leonard's name, DeForest Buckner, Kenny Moore.
What was the goal? How many?
40.
How many we get to?
33.
Well,
I mean, still a hell of a lot of turnovers, but when your defense is so predicated on getting turnovers, when you don't, it hurts. And it showed today.
Yep. All right. I think this might be a little dramatic. It's definitely one of the worst, but the worst loss in franchise history, Andrew. And of course, I'm not very good. You know, I'm not Aaron Rodgers with my recall. So I might not be able to give a perfect example, but what do you think?
I think it's up there. If not the worst, it's one of the worst because you got to think.
Loss. Call Fangio?
I mean, possibly. I don't know how big.
We got the time.
How big of a change that would be schematically, unless Fangio's willing to run this 4-3. I'm not exactly sure what they ran in Denver. I'd have to look into that. But I mean, Vic Fangio is one hell of a defensive coordinator. I can tell you that.
All right. Anyway, worst loss in franchise history.
I mean, it's got to be up there. Like I was saying, especially when you think of everything in context. The Colts, I mean, obviously this doesn't have any effect on the Colts. Certainly don't care about this, but they were 15-point favorites going into this game. Everyone thought that the Colts were going to easily win. The Colts had to win to get into the playoffs. You are going up against the team. It's not just any ordinary loss against like above the Buffalo Bills or the Cincinnati Bengals. You're going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars, who will be picking number 1 in the NFL draft for the second year in a row. A team that fired their head coach in the middle of the season. A team whose fans showed up.
2 teams in a row that fired their head coach in the middle of the season.
A team whose fans showed up today wearing clown costumes to protest their GM. And they lost, and now are sitting at home watching playoff football. So it's got to rank up there, I would think, when you think of all of those things combined with how the Colts went out there and performed. They didn't just lose on a field goal, and they played their hearts out and played a good game. They got their asses handed to them today.
Yeah.
They really did.
Tom, those are both really good ones. The playoff loss against the Steelers at home is a good one. The shoestring tackle Big Ben made at the end of that game. Vanderchoke missing that field goal. The Jets, that's a good one because that's the year we let them in. We pulled our starters and then we played them in the first round and lost to them in the playoffs for real.
No, I think he might have been talking about the 41-0 loss to the Jets in the early 2000s.
Yeah, but that's tough.
At the same time,
loss.
Listen, all of those are playoff losses. This one was
this is the most embarrassing loss probably.
This one was just to get into the playoffs. So all those you're going up against at least playoff caliber teams, not the 2-14, now 3-14 Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah. So yeah, maybe worst looking for sure, but most painful probably not for me. Super Bowl, that sucked. Super Bowl really sucked. And those two, that Steelers game, that was a heartbreaker as well. I don't know. Yeah, you got to be right, man. At least since we've been alive and watching.
Yeah.
Playoffs.
Well,
Let's talk about the playoffs. Dude, what if Frank Reich came out and just said,
can't even win a game?
Oh, man.
Well, I mean,
Frank Reich would be a legend if he just walked out and said that shit.
You think of the OGs in the indie media and Mike Chappell and Bob Kravitz. I mean, good old Bob Kravitz, am I right? They were tweeting after the game that they couldn't think of a worse loss in franchise history. And those guys have been covering the Colts since forever, especially Mike Chappell, who's been covering the Colts since they moved from Baltimore to Indianapolis. Yeah.
When Season says he's rooting for the Raiders after everything they've been through. You must not have been at the game last week. Those Raiders fans sucked. I'm not cheering for the Raiders for shit. Those people were horrible. Who you cheering for here in the playoffs, Andrew? I say AFC. I'm going to cheer for the Bills. Or if the Chiefs end up in there, I'd be fine with Mahomes going again, I guess. But I really want A-Rod or Stafford to go get one.
I'd probably say the Chiefs or the Bills, and then Packers over in the NFC because I kind of want Aaron Rodgers to shut everybody up.
Anybody but the Titans and the Patriots. Anybody but them.
And the Bucks
or the Raiders. Oh, that's right. They're not going to make it because they're going to lose tonight. All right. Where do the Colts go from here? What do you want to chat about? Flus is gone.
I'm not going to give any predictions on people officially being gone, but I think it's time for a very hard look from the top on down, from Chris Ballard on down, of what this team and not only their philosophies, but also what track this team is on. Because I think this loss goes on everybody from the top on down. I think it goes on Chris Ballard for not addressing certain things in the offseason. I think it goes on Frank Reich for maybe putting too much faith in certain spots where he shouldn't, getting too cute where he shouldn't. Goes on Carson Wentz, goes on the offensive line, the defense, the wide receivers for not stepping up, goes on certainly position coaches. I mean, Scott Milanovich he's got to play a role in this Carson Wentz thing, start not being able to perform at the end. Matt Eberflus for what his defensive philosophy is and how this defense has looked here these final 2 games. Brian Baker, certainly the defensive line coach, where this Colts team, he's been the defensive line coach, I think at least for the last 2 years, maybe even longer than that. And we haven't seen anything to go home about this pass rush.
Yeah.
A lot of people need to look from the top down. And from what I heard, Jim Irsay went into that locker room after this loss, and he was not a happy man. And why would you be when your franchise that you put everything in, and they go out and perform as embarrassing and pathetic as that? I mean, my guess is Jim Irsay was a lot more level-headed than I would have been after this loss, and that's saying something. So yeah. I think everyone's on a little bit of a hot seat right now. And again, we're not even 12. I don't even know what time it is. We're not even 5 hours after this loss as of right now. So everyone's emotions are running high. Hell, even our emotions are running high. So you don't want to make any rash decisions, but they really need to take a long look at themselves. Chris Ballard needs to take a look at himself and say, hey, we need to get more weapons for Carson Wentz. We need to make sure we shore up this left tackle position. Frank Reich needs to look and say, hey, I need to do a better job of play calling. I need to do a better job of not being so predictable. Matt Eberflus, I need to do a better job of being more aggressive, making sure that I don't just let everything be so easy for these quarterbacks. And then usually when there's losses like this, things will change. So I could see some position coaches getting fired. Does Chris Ballard get fired? Absolutely not. Does Frank Reich? Absolutely not. Does Matt Eberflus? I don't even think Matt Eberflus gets fired. Should he? Up for debate. Does he leave for a head coaching position? We'll see. But the Colts need to take off. I wouldn't say Marcus Brady gets fired just because he's a first year offensive coordinator, and I think he will probably get better. And Frank Reich has a lot of faith in him. But they're at a crossroads right now because this team has a lot of good players, and they should not be losing these games. They should be making a bigger impact in the playoffs. And if this continues, those guys up at the top, those seats are going to get really hot because this fan base and this owner isn't going to stand for it.
We need to see some accountability at all levels.
Mm-hmm.
Some form of accountability. I would like, and if you do the same shit week after week and nothing changes, that's a problem. And we thought maybe Wentz, we had just talked about him not making boneheaded decisions anymore, and it was just bad play. Well, today it was both. I mean, it was all of it. Somebody, I saw a comment earlier, something about, the offensive line and Wentz having the COVID fog like, Cam did last year. Like everybody's blaming that. But yeah, I mean, I agree. We need some players to help Carson Wentz. We need a player to help the offensive line. And we need our coaches to have some real good self-evaluation this offseason because
we need Carson Wentz to help Carson Wentz. He needs to get better in his mechanics, needs to get better in his decision-making, and he needs to go back and really digest this film and realize this is his last chance. Because if he gets cut by the Indianapolis Colts, I don't think he will be a starter in the league anymore. So this is his last chance, and he better make the most of it in 2022. Otherwise, like I said, Carson Wentz's days as a starting quarterback in the NFL could be numbered.
Yeah. I mean, that we said that from the start, that that this was his last chance. So it was one season. I mean, I don't actually think it was COVID fog either, but I liked the joke. Other Colts news, there is none because we're done. I didn't even watch Hard Knocks, to be honest with you.
Well,
Don't even think I watched Hard Knocks.
You were talking about how this might be a long playoff run and Hard Knocks might be going on for weeks. Well, Wednesday will be our last episode of Hard Knocks.
Going to be an interesting one.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Let's talk about scores. Didn't watch a single game. I was too pissed off. Actually, I did watch some of the games yesterday, but Chiefs 28, Broncos 24. Chiefs are probably going to go to the Super Bowl, if I had to guess.
I mean, they did lose to Tennessee. Tennessee, who knows? This AFC is wide open, in my opinion, and especially with, I mean, Kansas City just lost to the Bengals and old Joey Burrow. I mean, they could be a dark horse. Their offense is looking real hot right now. So,
Yeah.
I still think this AFC is absolutely wide open.
And the NFC, but we'll see. Cowboys came out like one pissed off pick 'em up truck, 51-26 over the Eagles. Holy smokes, I did not expect that.
Eagles weren't playing a lot of their starters. They did put up a hell of a fight. I will say that. Nick Sirianni, hey, Nick Sirianni, congrats to him. He's going to the playoffs.
Maybe I got to cheer for the Eagles. Shit.
Root for the Eagles to make some noise in the playoffs. So root for Nick Sirianni. But hey,
like that hurts, dude.
We'll see what the Cowboys do when they have to play. Let's see, who's the 5th seed? Arizona. So it'll probably be Cowboys Arizona in the wild card weekend. Which Cowboys just lost to Arizona just last week.
Yeah. Browns 21, Bengals 16. Both were playing bench players, playing for nothing. Who cares?
Yeah, I didn't see a single snap from that game. Hey, Case Keenum must have got the win, though. Good for him.
Guess so. Lions pull off a victory to end the season, 37-30 for the Packers. Aaron played part of the game, scored me some points. I might actually beat you still.
Yeah, I'm seeing that, and it's not looking good.
I've got a chance. I need the Raiders to have a running attack tonight, not a passing attack. Mr. Renfro needs to have a seat on the bench or something. I need to win something today. Yeah, that game again didn't matter. Vikings Bears. Vikings win 31-17. I mean, do we need to talk about these ones that didn't matter?
Do you think Mike Zimmer still has a job? The Vikings coach?
That's a tough one. He shouldn't, but he probably will have one more year. And Mike Florio is going to flip if he's not fired. Mike Florio is going to shit himself. It's going to be hilarious.
Good. I hate Mike Florio.
I know. He loves the Vikings, though, but he hates them. Washington 22, Giants 7. Another one, who cares?
I fully expect
I don't know who played quarterback for the Giants.
Giants 100% need to blow it up starting tomorrow.
Yeah. Or tonight. Why not? Tomorrow's Black Monday, right?
Yep.
Steelers. Now this one mattered. Steelers 16, Ravens 13. So that put us out. We still had a chance even with the loss today, and right away the Steelers said, "F you." Big Ben's going out with a victory and a potential playoff run.
Mm-hmm. Hey, but Big Ben still holding on to those games. I mean, it seems like, oh, this is going to be the last game for Big Ben. This is going to be the last game. How far is this going to go along? I don't even know. I mean, obviously the playoff seeding hasn't been confirmed yet, but it's hard to see the Steelers getting past the wild card round.
Shut up, Matt.
Oh, yes, that did happen. The Giants did run a QB sneak on 3rd and 9 from inside their own 5-yard line.
Oh my God. That's incredible. That's the most hilarious thing I've ever heard. Titans 28, Texans 25. I thought the Texans and Mr. Davis Mills were going to bring it back. I think the Texans are going to hang on to Mills, honestly, and I think he's going to be starting next year.
Honestly, I'd roll with Davis Mills. Get him a good coach. Get him because I don't know if David Culley's really working out. Get him an offensive-minded coach. Get him a very good offensive coordinator, QB coach, and hey, see what Davis Mills could do because, I mean, the kid balls. He's been doing pretty well this year.
Yep.
In a terrible situation.
Terrible situation. Saints 30, Falcons 20. I believe the Saints are in.
The Saints would have been in if the 49ers lost, which we'll get to that in a second.
That's tough.
But hey,
Bills
real quick, you know I don't do this often. Credit to Sean Payton because he had four different quarterbacks start a game for him this year. Came one game away from going to the playoffs. Pretty damn impressive.
I was going to ask, do you think Culley's on the hot seat? Matt brings that up here. I was wondering.
There have been talks that he could get let go tomorrow.
I kind of felt like he was just a fill-in for a year anyway. I didn't ever think that was going to work out. Bills 27, Jets 10. Bills are going to be one of the teams I'll be cheering for sure.
Bills win the AFC East with that win.
Yep, and then Patriots. 49ers 27, Rams 24 in overtime. Matt Stafford, I believe, threw an interception that caused this overtime to happen.
Yeah, Matty Stafford just
rough few weeks.
Yeah, can't protect the football. So they better get that together because I mean the Rams have a lot of talent. There's no debating that. But man, it seems like they've lost a lot of games that you think they should win.
Yeah, same with the Colts. 49ers, never mind. Dolphins 33, Patriots 24. Can't wait to watch that Bill Belichick post-game press conference. That's my favorite.
Dolphins got up by a lot early, and the Patriots, see, that's the thing with the Patriots and Mac Jones. Mac Jones is a very good quarterback unless you're playing from behind. Then it's kind of difficult for Mac Jones to really build a comeback. So something to keep an eye on once the playoffs start if that ends up being the case.
I believe the Dolphins beat the Patriots both games this year.
I don't know.
Could be true. Seahawks 38, Cardinals 30. Wow. Okay. Did the Cardinals sit people?
They did not. The Cardinals were trying because if the Cardinals would have won, they would have won the NFC West because they were in a tie, I think, with they were in a tie with the Rams or one game behind the Rams and they owned the tiebreaker, something like that.
Wow. Buccaneers 41, Panthers 17. No surprise there. Matt Rule apparently, I think, is that in the notes? Okay, I won't bring that up yet. All right, that's it. That's the games. News around the league, Andrew. Buccaneers signed defensive tackle Vita Vea to a 4-year, $73 million extension.
Well deserved. He is an absolute monster there in the middle of that Buccaneers defensive line, and he's one of the sole reasons that the Buccaneers have such a fierce run defense.
Yep. Seahawks have no plans of trading quarterback Russell Wilson during the 2022 offseason at this time. Status of head coach Pete Carroll's future with the team unclear at this time. I kind of agree with you, Andrew, because Russell Wilson's the face of that team at this point, not Pete Carroll. It would be a good move for the Seahawks, I think, as an organization to keep Russ, but you cannot screw up a head coaching hire in that situation.
Right. Well, and the thing is too, like Russ isn't like an old quarterback. He's not damaged goods. I mean, when Russ is fully healthy, he's still top 5 to 10 quarterback in this league. Yeah. And when you have that, you don't just give that away. I mean, who are the Seahawks going to turn to? Who's the backup? Was it Geno Smith? And then their third quarterback is Jacob Eason. So
correct.
They don't really have a choice there, but if Russ wants him out, I think maybe you should think about that and think about going with an offensive-minded head coach for your star running back or star quarterback, excuse me.
I agree. Browns plan to move forward with Baker Mayfield as their quarterback in 2022. No extension imminent. I think that's the right move.
I think so too at this point because, I mean, again, who out there is going to be better unless you're trading for an Aaron Rodgers or a Russell Wilson, a Deshaun Watson. But the thing is, like, again, you can't bet on any of those things happening. And when you have a not so stellar quarterback class in this year's draft, like has been the past few years, you can't just put all your chips into that either. So give Baker one more year. I mean, you've already got him under contract for that 1 year, and then see what happens.
Panthers expected to keep Matt Rule for the 2022 season. Good move or bad move?
I don't like it. I mean, and I was a big fan of Matt Rule.
I don't like getting rid of coaches after 1 or 2 years either.
I think his record is like 10 and he's only got 10 wins and it's not good. Apparently that culture isn't good either. He's been throwing some guys under the bus. It's definitely not good in
similar
Carolina.
to another college head coach that came to the NFL. A different world.
People realizing that those coaches need to realize that NFL, you're coaching grown men. You're dealing with grown men, not kids fresh out of high school.
So, Andrew, this is hilarious to me. Panthers also expected to target former head coaches John or Jay Gruden. Matt's saying Jay. You're saying John Gruden.
Well, let me take a look under the hood at what I
So
read.
If that's the case, while you look, I think that's hilarious because apparently the owner, I can't think of his name off the top of my head, was talking about how he's embarrassed by the Matt Rule contract, right?
Mm-hmm.
If he turns around and hires John freaking Gruden, that's not embarrassing to you? What? I can't imagine.
Gonna have to see where.
Either way, they're also looking, while you're looking, they're also looking at Bill O'Brien, as well as Rams offensive coordinator Kevin O'Donnell for their open offensive coordinator positions. Why would Kevin O'Connell, why would an offensive coordinator for a team like the Rams with Sean McVay in LA want to go to Charlotte, North Carolina to play with a shitty team? To coach with a shitty team, I should say. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I really don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me either. And
Schefter says Jay.
Okay, well, I'll trust Shefty then. That was just me maybe looking at it very quickly this morning. I do apologize. Jay Gruden, that makes more sense than John Gruden, considering all the stuff that just happened. And he's now in like legal proceedings against the NFL. So definitely makes sense.
Right. That would have been crazy. Are we good here?
Yeah. Let's move on.
Broncos fire head coach Vic Fangio, 19-30 in 3 seasons as Broncos head coach. I do like the defense coordinator idea. I don't hate it.
He's a pretty good defensive coordinator. I mean, he had a lot of success with the Bears, and that's why we got the head coach opportunity there in Denver. He's an old school guy, so I don't know if you'd really want him to be handling your entire franchise, but as a defensive coordinator, he's a good guy. And again, I don't know, because I think the Colts, whether Eberflus moves on or not, I don't think the Colts, especially with how they've drafted and how they've built this defense, they don't want to go away from that 4-3 heavy zone defense. So you're gonna have to find a defensive coordinator that will do the same thing, or kind of want to be in that same scheme.
Crikey. Oh, here we go. It's been a long time since this has happened.
You want me to move on for us here?
Yeah. Jeez.
as you handle that. So we're going to move on to news about the Steelers GM. So not only could Ben Roethlisberger be gone, Steelers GM Kevin Colbert is expected to step down after the 2022 NFL draft. That's a little weird, in my opinion. Why? I mean, wouldn't you want your new GM to kind of take over that draft? Or
no,
would
because
you?
This GM's already put in all the work. The draft is a year-long process, man. We've seen this happen before. I can't think of the specific off the top of my head, but I remember thinking the same thing at one point. But as knowing as much as we do about the, Chris Ballard's draft process, and I mean, we've learned a lot about that through the mini series that the Colts do. No, Matt, no.
For those that aren't watching on YouTube, Hunter Renfrow just got a touchdown, and Stats Matt broke the news to Brandon. So that helps me in the fantasy department against Brandon
anyway
tonight.
But it makes sense because they've already put in all this prep and all this work. I mean, you don't just want to dump it and go, hey, somebody, will you just draft in a couple months? So
it also
makes a lot more sense.
It also might mean that they have an internal candidate that they have ready to take his spot as well.
Could be. Lions expected to part ways with offensive coordinator Anthony Lynn. Big culture guy.
Big culture guy, but a guy that went from the Chargers to the Lions, and man, that offense was not good for most of the year.
Oh, that must be nice, bleed blue. Well, I'm getting shit on in fantasy, so. Is that true? Fangio coached for the Colts under Mora back in the day?
That was before my time.
Stats Tim. Just joking, Matt. All right. That's it. Andrew, no player of the game?
Don't play the music. There is no player of the game because not a single person stood out for the Colts this week.
Losers don't get player of the game. You know what I'm saying?
Oh man.
But you can still go follow us, guys. We're bummed that the season's over, so keep in touch with us. We're still going to be doing probably an episode a week to preview the playoff games and to recap the ones that have happened. We'll talk about Chris Ballard's press conference this week, but go follow us on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook at A Colts Podcast, and we'll stay in touch. So keep an eye out. We'll probably do Wednesdays.
We could do that.
Or Sundays. I don't know. I don't like having. I'm thinking Wednesdays.
We'll figure it out. But hey, that gives people a reason to watch our social media, because we'll announce when our episodes are going live on there. So
yeah, get your friends to come watch this and cry and piss and moan with us. Big thanks to Sports Illustrated and Horseshoe Huddle for taking us under their wing this year. That has been a lot of fun. We're looking forward to continuing that. We appreciate all you listeners. I don't even want to play the music. I don't want to say go Colts, but I'm going to do it because that's the theme song.
Through thick and thin, brother.
Big thanks to everybody. For whatever reason, we're going to continue to torture ourselves for eternity. Till next time, go Colts.
Go Colts.
Let this moment become a cherished memory. And then remember, a legacy is only worthwhile when there is a future to fuel. God bless you, and God bless football.